Welcome into Home Court Press Utah Jazz Talk Jazz Bites. Jazz win a first-round playoff series for the first time in, it seems like forever. This is your host, Brian Priest, joined as always by McCade Pearson. And we got a guest on with us today. We got Spencer, Mr. @Spida Forever. So Spencer, I'll throw it over to you first. How you feeling today, man?
Oh, man. A Jazz playoff win, a series win, I should say, in the first round, man. I'm so excited, but I kind of have the same mentality as the team that it's good to get a first-round win, but we have way bigger goals this year. So, soak it in for a minute, but we're looking forward. We're going to enjoy this, and I can't wait to see what they do this year.
Well said. McCade, how you feeling after a playoff series win?
I'm feeling good. We talked to our Hawks buddy about 2014-15 Hawks, and he told us to enjoy it as it goes. So if you don't win the championship, you still had fun. And, I'm trying to enjoy a good playoff win. You don't win a playoff series every year. And so I'm going to enjoy the one we have and prepare for a second, third, and fourth as well. But, it's fun to win a series 4-1. We haven't really done that in, 14 years and quite a while before that as well. So we're enjoying the early playoff wins and some rest while the rest of the West continues to kill each other.
Now, McCade, I feel like I have to call you out before we get too deep into this game. After the Jazz lost Game 1, you changed your prediction. You lost some confidence. You started with Jazz in 5, and then they lose Game 1, and you dropped off to Jazz in 6. What happened? Why don't you have confidence in the best team in the league?
It's called a hedge bet. And, you look smart regardless of what happens. You can go back to whatever prediction you want. When you just stay with Jazz in 5 as your prediction the entire time, if that doesn't happen, it comes back to bite you. So it's widening the possibilities of me being right, because I am always right.
Okay, math. Spencer, what was your prediction going into this series?
Jazz in 5.
Okay.
And I stand by that, McCade. I never faltered.
Nor did I.
All right.
I think
I have Jazz in 6 in the next series. I don't care who it is. That's how. Okay. There's the confidence for you.
Jumping ahead. Let's start looking at this ball game last night. Jazz come out on fire. Everybody was hitting shots. Royce hit some threes. Donovan playing some great basketball. I think he scored 12 points in his first 6 minutes in the game, and then he came back, and immediately started scoring again without any hesitation. 47 points in the first quarter, the most points the Jazz as a franchise have scored in any quarter in a playoff game, besting a 45 way back in 1991. What level of confidence, Spencer, I'll throw it to you first. How did you feel watching that first quarter? Did you think it was over at that point, or were you still kind of hesitant and not ready to celebrate just yet?
So, to be honest, heading into the game last night, I was extremely confident that they would get the win. I think last year, like Donovan said it after the debacle last year, losing that series, being up 3-1, that this wouldn't happen again. And I think it was burned into their memories, and they had zero interest in a repeat of last year. And they came out and they threw haymakers. They know they're the better team. They didn't take time to feel out Memphis. They just asserted their will. And after that first quarter, I was pretty much confident that we were going to get that one wrapped up really easy. And it was just great to see such a dominant performance, to see the Jazz doing whatever they wanted to do on offense and defensively. Yes. They really made life tough for those guys. So, it was a great first quarter and a great first half.
Where were your thoughts after the first quarter, McCade?
Oh, I was ready to flip channels over to the Mavericks-Clippers game.
I don't believe you for 1 second.
I did not. Actually, I had the Jazz game on my laptop and the Clippers-Mavs game up on my TV, so I wasn't keeping an eye on both games. But the dominance that they came out in the first quarter was just a championship-level performance. That was kind of the first time this year where I was like, whoa, we could really, really do this. You look at the numbers and you watch all season, you're like, yeah, this team could be there, this team could get there. But, you have to play that way all the way through mid-July this year. And, it's June, and, we're only a month away from the finals, and that kind of performance is like, man, we really are 8 wins away from the finals, and we really can do it. And then, of course, you see the Clippers lose, and the Lakers are down 3-2, and all of a sudden we're plus 130 to win the West, which means basically we're like 50-50 to win the West at this point. And so I'm just trying to enjoy it in the moment, because this team is so good and so fun to watch, and when they hit their peak for a few-minute stretch, it's up there with the best teams of all time in terms of just the absolute peak, where you can just get bombarded with, 8 out of 10 threes in a 5-minute stretch, and the game's over like that.
Now, I wasn't quite as confident as you guys. Maybe call me a pessimist if you want, but 47 points in the first quarter. They lead by 20. And I felt good about it, of course. I was very happy with their performance, but I've seen the Jazz lose a 20-point lead in this series with a lot less time to play than another 36 minutes. I'll tell you when I felt the most confident and felt like this is it. The Jazz are going to win. There's just no doubt in my mind. Was those 2 threes at the end of the first half that Donovan Mitchell hit. One on Dylan Brooks. Brooks played incredible defense on that play, stayed in front of Donovan. Donovan wasn't able to get anything and throws up what... If you don't watch Donovan Mitchell play all the time, a lot of people might think it was a prayer, but that's not a bad shot from Don. And then he closes the half at the buzzer with a 3 in the same spot over Jonas Valanciunas, also a tough shot. I was like, well, if those are going to go, then this game, there's no way that Memphis is going to be able to come back from this one. I think they went into halftime up 24, I believe, if I remember the numbers right. But I felt great going to halftime. I had all the confidence in the world. Didn't feel confident enough to flip over to the Clippers game until the Jazz game was over, but they just played so good. And like you said, McCade, that was the type of performance that championship-level teams can have. That's what we remember from the Jazz back in January and February when they were playing their best basketball of the season. And it was great to see that come back in a playoff game. So let me ask you guys this. We'll shift gears a little bit. McCade, we'll go to you first. What was your favorite moment from last night?
Oh, it's got to be the Donovan threes there at the end of the first quarter, because those are just ridiculous shots that, nobody in this league, not even the Steph Currys, the Kyries, the whoever, even the Donovans, they don't make those shots, at a very high clip. But when they do go down, it's such a momentum boost. And as you said, it was kind of the dagger where he hits those back-to-back threes in the last minute of the first half, and there goes all hope, because, I saw a couple Grizzlies fans that I follow on Twitter just go, oh, that's the killer, that's it. It just takes all the emotion out of you.
Mm-hmm.
After, honestly, a pretty good quarter from the Grizzlies in the second quarter. They fought back. They got it to, 15-16. We're just trying to do their little hang-around thing. And then, it's at 18, and boom, boom, it's at 24, and the game's over. So I think that's the most fun moment. Also, just the first quarter, when you're hitting 8 out of 10 threes to start a game, a closeout game like that, it really gets the crowd involved. Great atmosphere. And
Spencer, did you have a favorite moment?
Man, it's got to be the Don threes. I mean, the 3 on Dylan, the difficulty level is just insane. But the 3 to close out the half, that's a really tough shot, falling away to your right at the buzzer. The difficulty level can't be overstated. Like, that's a really tough shot. And I tweeted about it last night, but I think I'm ready to say that was probably Donovan's most masterful performance in a Jazz uniform. The way he controlled the pace of the game. I know the bubble, he had his 50-whatever point games, but watching the way he controlled the game last night, like, this is the steps that McCade and I talked about last year that we wanted to see Donovan take in just taking control of the game, and he did that, and it was just so much fun to watch.
Let's just use that as a segue here, and let's start talking about Donovan and how good he was last night, how good he was this entire series. So he finishes last night 30 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists. McCade, I don't know if you know this or not. Was that his first playoff double-double?
No, he had, I believe, a 10-rebound game back against Houston the first year.
Okay.
I'll have to double-check. But, yeah, his passing last night was just at an insane level. Specifically the third quarter. He had 5 assists in the first half, which is great. But specifically that third quarter, he had some amazing passes to Rudy and Davis for dunks. He swung the ball and got a couple of threes and ended up with 3 or 4 assists in the third quarter, where he just was in such control of the game. It's not necessarily the assist numbers that caught my eye, although 10's a great number for Donovan, but just visually, just the eye test. He was the dominant player on the court. He owned that game out of the 10 players on the court, and that's what really helped the Jazz push the lead even bigger from 24 to the high 30s. Memphis makes their run, and the Jazz get kind of lazy, and the bench isn't very good, so it ends up being 16. But anyone who watched this game, this was a 40-point blowout, and a lot of that was Donovan's continued pressure throughout the entire game, whether it was scoring in the first and second quarter or his passing and just controlling the vibe in the third.
What I loved about this was, as well as Donovan was shooting, he finishes the game 11 of 16 from the field, 5 of 8 from 3. It never stopped him from focusing on the team and playing eyes out, like Quinn Snyder likes to talk about. His vision as a playmaker is night and day better than what it was when he came into the league. It's better than what it was before the season halted with COVID last March. The way he came back in the bubble, he showed a lot of growth. He showed that he'd been watching a lot of film and was a better passer at the time. But the way he was able to, like you guys have both said, control and dictate the pace of the game the entire time he was on the floor last night, whether he was scoring or whether he was creating for other people, he threw some really, really difficult passes. I like to think that I can read the game pretty well, especially watching it on TV from that bird's eye view. And there were probably 3 or 4 passes that he was able to throw for an easy dunk or a layup that I didn't even see. I had no idea they were going to be available. And it's just great to watch Donovan's development, and that so many young players will get lost and focused on just scoring to be able to lead their team. And the way Donovan has added the assist game. And also when we look at the 4 games that he played in this series, he went from no assists in game 2 to 5 assists in game 3, 8 assists in game 4, and now 10 assists and a double-double in game 5. It just shows that he is getting back in the flow and the rhythm. One of the things about Quinn Snyder's offense is it's so rhythm and ball movement based. It's difficult when you haven't played for a month or more. It's difficult for the Jazz offense when they have a week off. So to see Donovan come back and be so dominant, and really, he at this point, 4 games in, he looks like he didn't miss any time. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, I'm in total agreement there.
Yeah, we're still seeing those top 10 flashes, and he's getting closer and closer to that being just who he is. He's been amazing this year, especially the playmaking's taking a big step up. Can I bring you some minor breaking news, Brian?
Please.
Live on the show. They just announced the Mavericks game will be at 1:30 on ABC on Sunday. So if the Clippers win Game 6, that will be Clippers-Mavericks Game 7 at 1:30 on Sunday. If the Mavericks close it out in 6, that will be Jazz-Mavericks at 1:30 p.m. ABC primetime Sunday afternoon. So
I
we
love
have
it.
a light Game 1 start.
That's exactly what I wanted. I have a red-eye flight to Boston Sunday night, and I still wanted to be able to go to Game 1. So let's go Mavericks, close it out Friday night, and then I can go to Game 1. Ooh, now I got goosebumps. Thanks for that, McCabe.
Afternoon games are fun, but yeah, Jazz-Mavericks, Game 1, Sunday afternoon, unless it's Clippers-Mavericks Game 7. So
Ooh, I'm excited.
We can move on with reviewing this series, though.
Okay, Spencer, so I want to throw this one to you. Who do you want to talk about next individually?
Oh, man.
There's so many to choose from, right?
I want to highlight Royce. Royce was so good this series. He shot the ball without hesitation, which is something that's so huge for him. But also, the last two games, Quinn said something to him. Whatever he said, he told Royce to get on the boards, and we really limited second chance opportunities. And Royce played a huge role in that. I thought that he was, the guy that you want and expect him to be. And he just couldn't have had a better series, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of how he played.
I thought Royce O'Neal was spectacular. You mentioned the rebounding, and that's been something that he's really stepped up with all season long, and even more so in the playoffs. You're 100% correct there, because the Jazz, for all the things that they're great at, they do lack size outside of Rudy Gobert. And so to have Royce be able to get into traffic and fight for those rebounds is great. One thing that stands out to me, and I might be a little bit off on these numbers, but if I remember right, through the first 4 games, Royce was 12 of 21 from 3. Last night he went 3 of 7. That means he made 15 of 28 three-point attempts in this series. That's over 50%. I don't care who you are. Those are great numbers. But for Royce to be able to space the floor for this Jazz offense, shoot those threes without any hesitation, and that's always been my one concern with him, is sometimes it seems like he gets in his head a little bit and he'll hesitate taking open threes, and I didn't see that at all in this series. He finishes last night with 17 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, had 4 steals. And I just want to remind everybody, this is an undrafted free agent that came to the Jazz in an open tryout, a dude that lost a tooth and is so tough in that open tryout that he didn't even tell anyone. He just kept playing and then had to get shamed into it like a parent finding out that you broke into the fridge and ate what you were supposed to have for dinner that night already. Love what Royce has been doing in this series. I hope that he can continue to do it moving forward, and that's part of the reason I want the Jazz to play the Mavericks, because I think that defensively he can match up better with Luka Doncic than he did against Ja Morant in this series, because it was a really tough matchup for him, but he was great on both ends of the floor. McCade, what did you see from Royce?
No, just the shooting was fantastic. Him getting up as many threes as he did was super important to the offense. It's even a bigger added bonus that he made them. And if he can continue to do that offensively, that's where the Jazz hit their peak. Defensively, he wasn't perfect. He wasn't ideal, but I thought he did a pretty good job. And as you mentioned, he matches up pretty well in the next round, whether it's Paul George and Kawhi or Luka and Porzingis. Those are a little easier matchups for him than the quick guard and Ja. So he should continue to have a big postseason, and he's one of those X factors that really swings exactly where this team's potential is.
Yeah, X Factor, I think, is the perfect term for Royce O'Neal. It's easy to overlook him when you've got stars on a team like Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. You have Mike Conley making his first All-Star team. You have the Sixth Man of the Year in Jordan Clarkson, the Sixth Man of the Year runner-up in Joe Ingles. Royce tends to get lost in the shuffle at times, but what he brings on both ends of the floor, the Jazz just aren't going to get from anybody else. Thanks for tuning in today. It's Season 2 of Home Court Press with McCade Pearson and Brian Priest as we make our return with Season 2 Playoffs Edition. Look for our Jazz Bites game recaps after almost every Jazz game and our weekly Wednesday looking at happenings around the league as the playoffs unfold. Home Court Press can be found on any of your major podcatchers, including Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and on Twitter at homecourt_press. And please, if you like what you're hearing, share, rate, and review the show so we can expand our audience. Lastly, give McCade Pearson a follow on Twitter at McCadeP8, and you can find me, Brian Priest, on Twitter at BPriest24. As always, thanks for listening to Home Court Press. Take note. Now, back to the show. Where do you want to go next, McCade? Do you want to talk about Rudy? Do you want to talk about anybody else?
Well, I just want to shout out Ja and Jonas and all the Grizzlies. Those guys played really, really well. The Jazz beat that team. They didn't really beat themselves too much. And so great job from the Grizzlies. Nothing but respect for them. And, we could spend half an hour talking about how well they played, which is a good thing for the Jazz. You beat a really good team. But let's keep it Jazz, and let's talk about Rudy, who goes 23, 15, and 3 last night. Finishes this series at 17, 13, and 4, which is dominant on both ends really all series long.
Past game one, Spencer, do you think there was a time where Rudy didn't control everything that was happening?
There are moments where it feels like Rudy isn't dominant, but I don't think that's actually true. I think Rudy's dominant defensively most of the time. He had a rough game one, but I mean, I've already put the narrative to bed that Rudy gets played off the floor in the playoffs. Like, that's a narrative that's trash in my opinion. But this series, he reaffirmed that that's not even close to true. He was absolutely dominant defensively, and I mean, he did everything you want from a superstar center.
If I can make a comparison, McCade, you're a football guy. I think that Rudy is comparable to like a shutdown corner on defense, where just because their numbers aren't great doesn't mean that they weren't spectacular in a ball game. Sometimes your numbers aren't good because nobody's challenging you. Nobody's going at you. Quarterbacks are not throwing at you. And the same can be said for Rudy. Spencer, you talked about how sometimes it does look like he's not dominant, but I think that's just because sometimes defenses just don't want to even bother going anywhere near him. Is that something that you saw in this series, McCade? And is it something that Rudy can continue to do going forward, whether they play the Mavericks or the Clippers?
Yeah, opponents, David Locke talks about this a lot, but, shot distribution and where you're getting your shots. If you're getting shots at the rim and threes and free throw line, you're doing pretty good. And other teams just don't shoot at the rim when Rudy's on the court. And they don't make them when they do shoot there. And you can even say Rudy's more of even a safety than a corner because he just covers the whole field. It doesn't matter where he is. His gravity defensively, the defense offense in that scenario is always very aware of Rudy Gobert is on the court, and trying to utilize that to their advantage is just impossible because he covers corner three to corner three, it feels like. His numbers this series were great. He didn't get played off the floor like people might say, and I think it's only going to get better. I think this next series, especially if it is against Dallas, but even if it's against the Clippers who, have Zubac and hurt Serge Ibaka and whatnot, he's going to have another monster series where I really think narratives are going to swing a big chunk in the next 2 weeks as we move into the second round.
Spencer, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. When Rudy gets named the Defensive Player of the Year for the third time in his career, how do you think the league should do it? We saw with Julius Randle with the Most Improved Player. His son delivered the award to him at practice. of course, the Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson interaction on NBA on TNT. What would be the most special way for Rudy to find out he's won Defensive Player of the Year officially?
Well, I mean, rest in peace, Mark Eaton. I wish it could be Mark giving him the trophy. But I think the whole team is so behind Rudy as a defender. Last year or the year before that when they were, calling 2-time or 3-time or whatever, I would love if the whole team found out before him and they planned something where all the guys could hand him the trophy. I think that would be really special. They just appreciate him so much. And by the way, it's not going to be unanimous. I think there's going to be some Ben Simmons first place votes.
I agree.
But if there's ever a time for a DPOY to be unanimous, I don't know if there has been. McCade, you might know that, but Rudy should be the unanimous DPOY, and it would be really cool if all of his teammates were in on it. I think that would be special.
Yeah, I don't think there has been unanimous. I have to go double-check to be 100% sure. But it's super rare to that. I'm expecting it to be somewhere between 95 and 99 votes for Rudy out of the 100. This is an all-time great defensive season from an all-time great defender, and he's shown it both in the regular season and the playoffs, and I fully expect him to show it over the next couple series as well.
Couple more guys I want to mention from positives from last night. Borg was great again. I've been so impressed with the way he's been able to play in the playoffs and get his looks, hit threes. He was 3 of 6 from the three-point line, 6 of 14 from the field, finishes with 17 points. But far more important to me than the 17 points are the 8 rebounds and the 4 assists. One, it shows that he's moving the ball and not just being that, back down post player that if he's going to pass it out, he's probably going to turn it over. And the 8 rebounds are huge with this team because, like I said before when we were talking about Royce, they just don't have great rebounders outside of Rudy Gobert. So you have to have guys contribute on that end. And with Borg, I've always felt like it's more a question of effort on the boards than it is about ability. So to see him get those 8 rebounds, the entire team was so locked in. And then I have to mention Jordan Clarkson, too. I know that, McCade, you get frustrated with his lack of efficiency. 9 of 20 from the field last night, not spectacular. 3 of 12 from the three-point line. But he's just a walking bucket every time he's in the game. I firmly believe that he's never missed a floater inside of 8 feet. And it finishes with 24 points, and his energy, even when he's not scoring, I think is so important for this Jazz team off of the bench.
He's been up and down this series. He's had playoff struggles in his career. He was pretty good last night, but the thing with Clarkson is he just is good at key moments. And if he can be neutral and not shoot you out of game every game except for one game he wins you, then it's 100% worth it. That's kind of what we saw this series. His bad nights didn't really matter much, and his great night, the third quarter of Game 4 specifically, kind of won the Jazz the game. And, instead of going back to Memphis for Game 6 and me being right on my Jazz 6 prediction, they closed out in 5 because they're able to get that second win in Memphis because of Clarkson's third quarter. So as long as he doesn't shoot you out of games, you'll take neutral play and then him winning you a game of series. And I think we'll see that against the Clippers or Mavericks, that he just gets up so many shots and so many tough shots, but he's such a shot maker, he's going to win you at least a game every series. And that has a lot of value in raising a team's floor, which, contrary to kind of public opinion, it's really important to raise a team's floor, and Clarkson does that at a very high level.
Spencer, did you have anything you want to say about those two guys that I mentioned or anybody else?
Yeah, I've been critical of Jordan in the past, but overall, I'm in 100% agreement with McCade. As long as he doesn't shoot you off the floor, I don't care what the plus minus is. He's a positive for this team. And the other guy I want to shout out, I mean, you look at his box score last night and nothing jumps off, but I really, we all just held our breath last year anytime Rudy went off the floor. And I saw some extra pep in his step, and I really think that Derek played a good series for us. He was the guy we need him to be off the bench. You don't need Derek to go get you a bunch of points, a bunch of rebounds. You just need him to stay close to plus minus of 0 while Rudy's off the floor, and I thought Derek did that really well this series, so I think he deserves a shout-out too.
I totally agree with you. The difference between Tony Bradley and Ed Davis backup center minutes and what Derek Favors has done this year. Doesn't jump off of the stats page, but his leadership, his ability to protect the basket, and he gets a bad rap sometimes because defenses are so willing to attack him, and I think that's just because they don't want to attack Rudy regularly. So once Rudy's off of the floor, they think, hey, green light. And there's only so much that a guy like Derek Favors can do. But yeah, he was great all series long. One more mention, George Niang. George ended up with 7 rebounds last night. Great numbers from George. He hits 2 threes, and he's been so consistent, and I continue to be impressed with his development over the course of his career. Just last year, I wasn't even sure if he could be a rotation guy for a top-level playoff team, and he absolutely is. Now, we have to do one negative note here, guys. Spencer, I'll send it to you first. Where are you at in terms of concern, scale of 1 to 10 on Mike Conley's hamstring?
4. And a couple reasons why I would rate it that low. Like, yes, you're concerned about it. He has a history of hamstring issues. And I thought a few people mentioned last night that they were terrified of the MRI. That's not a really big deal to me. You're going to do an MRI when anything like a hamstring is mentioned, just to make sure there's no structural damage. But the fact that he spoke with the media, he talked about the injury. He talked about the fact that it didn't feel as bad as last year. It didn't feel as bad as earlier this year. Get him some rest. Will he be ready to go game 1? I think that's a TBD, but at the worst, I think it's a game 2 type thing. So, you're concerned a little bit, but I'm not in full on panic mode. I think we'll see him back, and I think we'll see him help us, win the next round.
McCade, same question to you. Scale of 1 to 10, where are you at?
My concern's a lot less after last night's game than it was during the game. First of all, he talked to the media, which I think is a great sign that he's willing to talk to the media and kind of give an update of where he's at. Second of all, the Jazz are in a good position with the Mavericks-Clippers series. So if the Clippers win Game 6, then that series is going Game 7, and Mike Conley has till Tuesday. And if the Jazz do end up playing Game 1 on Sunday, it's against the Mavericks, who I think are a little bit better matchup than the Clippers. And you kind of have a similar situation like you did with the Grizzlies. It's like, yeah, you might be without one of your all-star guards in Game 1, but then you should be good after that. And the Jazz will get some days off, between Games 1 and 2 regardless. So just the way the timing's going to line up, I feel like Mike Conley will have the time to for sure be ready by Game 2 and likely by Game 1, depending on when it is.
Once again, the importance of the 1 seed, I think, shows itself in the Jazz being able to get the Grizzlies. Even though it was a tough series, they're the only team in the West that has advanced to the second round, and they're guaranteed at least 4 days off. And I'd probably be at like an 8 or a 9 on his hamstring if I knew that they had to play in 2 days. But where I know they're going to get some rest, he's going to basically live in the training room, getting that taken care of until the Jazz play again. I think I'm probably at about a 6. It sounds like I'm a little bit more concerned than you guys just because this is the 4th, 5th time that it's cropped up in the last 2 years, and muscles just don't heal over the course of the playoffs. Anthony Davis over in L.A. and that groin strain that he's got, that's something that I think Lakers fans should be concerned about. And we just continue to see as injuries crop up, Joel Embiid in the meniscus right now. It's so important that the Jazz were able to get that 1 seed, give themselves the best and easiest path. Not to say it's an easy path, but the easiest path to the NBA Finals. And it's so important that they're going to be able to rest Mike for a few days because I don't think he'd be able to play in 2. Spencer, I'll start with you, and McCade, then we'll toss it over to you. Who do you guys want to play in the second round and why?
I am really in on the Jazz playing Dallas. They don't have a guy who can really even slow down Donovan. I mean, they've thrown a few different guys at him, but no one on that team really can do much with Donovan. So I think our ability to dissect them offensively is excellent. And then on the defensive end, Luka's going to get his. Luka is going to be the face of the league moving forward once, LeBron and some of those guys who've been around for a while start to fade out. Luka's going to stick around, and he's going to be really special. So the focus is, for me, like, don't let Luka do what he does, but just focus on everybody else and shutting everyone else out. And so I really want that Mavericks series. It's going to be a tough series. It probably goes 6, but I see the Jazz coming out on top in that one.
McCade, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm right there with you because I just don't think the Mavericks have any way to stop Donovan and Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert would dominate that series. We've seen him dominate Porzingis all year, all career long. You look, the Jazz beat the Mavericks at home by 20-plus both times they were here, back-to-back, I think a Thursday, Saturday back in late January, and that was the 2 games Donovan missed his concussion. So we beat them by 20 without Donovan, and then they did get the better of us in Dallas in a frustrating game, but they didn't have Porzingis. And Porzingis, I think, is a negative for Dallas, especially in a matchup against Utah. We want to talk about a big man getting played off the floor in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's been talk around Dallas of Porzingis not starting.
Yep.
And they ended up going with the Porzingis-Boban starting lineup to go huge instead. But he just doesn't bring a ton of value to that Mavericks team. And a matchup against Rudy Gobert will only exemplify that more. And, what better way to stop the Rudy gets played off the floor narrative than to have the opposing center off the floor for the other team. That being said, I'm not 100% worried about the Clippers. I think the Jazz would have a legit 50% chance to beat the Clippers. The Clippers obviously can't defend L.A., and the Jazz do a great job defending Utah. There's just concerns that, Paul George and Kawhi could hit super-duper star status for a few games, and the Jazz wouldn't be able to stop them, and that is a legit thing. But, again, they don't have a center to stop Rudy Gobert. So Rudy Gobert is going to have a monster series in the second round, and when he plays well, that puts the Jazz in a great position to win the series regardless of who it's against. But I would prefer Dallas.
I'm right there with you guys. I'd rather face the Mavericks. I think the Jazz match up very well with the Mavericks. I don't think they are as deep as the Clippers are. And I agree with you, McCade. I wouldn't say I worry about the Clippers. I think the Jazz are fully capable of beating them. I'm not nearly as high on them as some people are. I just think there's a lot of chemistry and locker room issues with that team that they didn't get solved after last year. The only concern I have with LA is I think that their variance is much higher. They can play a better top-tier, top-level basketball game than the Mavericks can, and I think that's why I would break it all down, why I would rather see Dallas, because we know who they are, we know what we're going to see from night to night. Either way, I think the Jazz are going to have a coaching advantage in the second round, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that the Mavericks can close it out on Friday night for purely selfish reasons. I want to go to Game 1. I don't want to have to miss the first 4 games of the series.
So the Jazz are back in action. We found out the schedule will be Sunday, Game 1 against Dallas if they close it out in 6. If not, Tuesday night against whoever wins Game 7. Either way, the Jazz are getting off 4 days of rest, maybe as many as 6. Either way, second round of the playoffs, championship contender, getting that gold patch on the back of the jerseys. The Jazz are in a great position. Jazz
are going to win a championship, aren't they, Spencer?
Man, I was really young in the Stockton and Malone days. I remember it a little bit, but in my insane Jazz basketball fandom, I've never felt more confident in a team. Donovan has reached superstar level. I don't think you can debate that anymore. Donovan is a superstar. Rudy Gobert is a superstar. You need guys like that to win a title. So, yeah, I'm really confident in this team, and I can't wait to buy tickets to that final series.
Want to give a shout out before we finish this up to the hashtag JazzPod Co-op. We keep bringing more pods into the fold. We got Hitting the High Notes, the 2s and 3s. Jedi and Germs are back up and recording again. The Hive with their Take Note Thursday, and they've got stuff about college teams all throughout the week as well. The Jazzagals, come back home, Emily McCoy. We need you. We miss you. And Dog and Deuce, I don't think I missed anybody. Did I, McCade?
Not off the top of my head.
There's so many. We just keep bringing them in. It's a great thing that we're doing. Just kind of the idea of a rising tide lifts all boats. Spencer, where can I find you on social media?
At Spida Forever. That's the number 4. Spida Forever on Twitter.
Do you have any new music you've been making lately?
Oh man, I've been writing a ton of music. So yeah, I'm jazz and music. So if you don't like music, sorry about it, but not really.
Spencer's a fun follow. I've enjoyed getting to know him through Twitter, and it's such an interesting medium, but you and I have gone back and forth. You're always willing to jump in and engage in conversation, and it's just something that I think is important. Even if we've disagreed on stuff occasionally, having a conversation is such a big deal, and not just going, well, you're dumb because we disagree. That's why I love following you, man. McCade, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at McCadeP8. That's MCCADEP8. You guys know what to do. Always got my fun playoff series probability odds up and whatnot. So come check it out. come chat Jazz basketball, and we have a lot of fun there on Twitter. We do our Spaces post-game as well, so join that as well.
Yeah, every post-game we jump on, do Spaces, and just have an open-flowing conversation. I've really been enjoying that. As for me, you can find me, Brian Priest, on Twitter at bpriest24. That's at BPREECE24. And you can find Home Court Press at homecourt_press. And Spencer, you're the guest today.
Take note.